don't need an elaborate team. You don't need anything to be automated. You could do everything to make sure that the idea is sound. If you're a person who is feeling stuck, who is feeling like they can't be able to build their dream business because there are so many things that they need for them to be able to build their business, you're programmed to think that for you to build your business, you need some elaborate app. You have this idea that I need this app to start my business. I need this product at its full state to start my business before people buy. And many people are stuck in this phase. They're stuck in the phase of building features for their websites, or they're stuck in the phase of just adding stuff to their products that nobody actually wants. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that I thought through, the 3 questions that I asked myself to be able to unwind myself basically, so that I can be able to build my own business. You should also ask yourself these questions if you are thinking of starting your business but you feel that the goal is too far-fetched, or you feel that the things that you need are so much. I'm going to use various examples to be able to break down these questions and explain to you the thought process that you should be having when you are asking yourself these questions. The first question I asked myself was, what is my MVP? Now, an MVP basically means minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is just as the name implies, minimum and viable. It has to be viable. It cannot just be anything that you think of. It has to be at least something that is presentable to the consumer or to your customer. And you might not have any customer at first, but you have to think through and say, okay, is this presentable to the customer? The point of having an MVP is so that you can be able to get feedback. The point is so that you can be able to get feedback from your customer. That's the whole point of an MVP. It's not because it's going to be your final product, or the fact, or there are not going to be features added to your product. It's the fact that the point of the MVP is to get feedback from your customers. So if you want to start your business, this is what you need to, the question you need to ask yourself: what is my MVP? What is the minimum viable products that I can offer? I have this grand idea. Fine, but let's break it down to the minimum viable product so that I can be able to get that product out there as fast as possible and get feedback. For example, let's look at Amazon. Amazon is this big conglomerate that is across different countries. But how did they start out? When Jeff Bezos started, he did not start out with a big website that had all these features. He started by saying, I'm going to sell books on the internet. Now, that is what the minimum viable product. I'm going to sell books on the internet. I'm going to have this website. I'm going to have a basic website. The entire thing that the website is doing is providing an interface for him to communicate with his customers. When someone orders, when someone places an order, he did not have a warehouse of books like he does now. When someone places an order on the website, he goes to the bookstore, gets the books, buys the books, and then goes to the post office and delivers those books to the person who places the order. At the customer's end, it's going to be like, oh, I placed an order and it got to me. But at the back end, it was basically humans that were doing everything. It was not automated. And that is basically what is needed when you want to start your business. You don't need an elaborate team. You don't need anything to be automated. You could do everything to make sure that the idea is sound. And when I know that this idea is sound, I can then probably look for investors. I can then take out a loan or whatever. This is not advice. I now know that there is demand for my product. So the second question that I thought through, or the second question I asked myself before starting my business was, what's the worst that can happen? No, like really, what's the worst that can happen? This is not just asking like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? No, like I had to write it down, like these are the things that actually can happen as a result of this thing failing. If this thing fails, like if this thing I'm bringing to the market, if I'm going to sell this pen to the market and nobody buys this pen, what's the worst that can happen to me? And then looking through the answers to that question. For example, in my case, when I started my business, I took out a 30,000 naira loan from a close friend. I already had about 30,000 at that time saved up for starting my business, but I felt it was prudent at that time to actually borrow and then have my own cash and then use that person's cash to start this venture up. I had to ask myself, what's the worst case scenario? Now, if I sell this MVP, if I sell this product and what I'm trying to do is get feedback from the customer, but nobody actually wants this product and I end up going out of business, what's the worst that can happen? Now, the worst that could have happened at that point was I would end up with no savings. And at that point, I felt it was worth it because, well, I was young at that time. I took that risk because I felt that this was the worst that can happen to me at that time. I had 30,000 naira in my savings. I did not take more than 30,000 naira because I said, if the worst that can happen, I don't want to be owing somebody 20,000 naira and then spoiling my reputation. This is where people will say that cut your coat according to your size, that kind of thing. Figure out this question: what's the worst that can happen if this thing doesn't go through? And if you are a entrepreneur, you're a wannabe entrepreneur, and you're starting from nothing, and you're probably young, then I would suggest that you take the risk. Like, what's the actual worst that can happen, and write it down and say that this is the worst that can happen. And also, this is also helpful when you're writing your business plan, because you're going to look at, okay, this is the worst case scenario. I've planned out for the worst case scenario, I've planned out for the mid case scenario, and I've planned out for the best case scenario. So having this question of what the worst that can happen to you is actually really, really important. So number 3, the question that I asked myself that helped me get my mind in order was, what's the best that can happen? Like, right? It seems like it's obvious from number 2. What's the best that can happen? What's the best case scenario? Because you have to weigh the worst and the best. If the best outweighs the worst, then I feel that is a good decision. So you look at what's your MVP, like what's your minimum viable product, what is the product that you have in mind that you're going to sell at the base level without having it being too elaborate, without having something too complicated. And then 2, what's the worst case scenario? What is the worst that can happen to this product? Is it going to affect my life drastically? Am I young? Can I start up again even if this fails? What exactly is the worst case scenario? And 3, what is the best case scenario? Am I set if this works out? If my MVP works out, am I set? What's the best that can happen from this scenario? And if you ask yourself these questions, you would have clarity on if you should pursue a business opportunity, and without having to go through the process of thinking through elaborate plans and never really starting out. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, please like and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm, and also ring that notification bell so that you're able to stay updated on the future videos that are coming out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.